All
I see.
right. Hello, everybody. We have people rolling in. All right, we have 11 participants on 12. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, y'all can hear us. If somebody can write in the chat, some of our participants, if you can hear my audio, that would be amazing, just so that I know that y'all are able to see us and hear us. Anybody? Feel free to use the chat to let us know that our audio is working. That would be great. Okay, and then hopefully y'all can see the CLE number, because that is how you get your CLE. Oh, I see somebody raising their hand. Does that mean you can hear us? Hopefully. I think so. Okay, great.
It's a webinar, Lena, so I think the chat is disabled, but people offered some Q&A and they said that they can hear us, which is fantastic.
Thank you for teaching me out. This is my first rodeo, if you can't tell. Yes, okay, thank you, Annette. Thank you, Haley. And I see people now, okay, the Q&A works. Fantastic. Yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Callie, John. I appreciate it. Clearly, I wasn't looking at the right chat. Would love for those of y'all on to type in what year you are. So how, what graduation year, maybe what you practice, because the panelists are really interested in knowing who is in the audience. So if you don't mind using that Q&A and typing in, like, I am a 6th year associate practicing commercial litigation here at Steptoe LLP. That's what I would type in. If y'all don't mind, that would be amazing, because our panelists are very interested in knowing who is here. And I see we've got over 24 people here already, so we'll get started in just a minute. But as people roll on, please don't be shy. Use the chat and let us know who you are. So I see Maya, a rising 2L at the University of Houston Law Center. I'm going to start calling some of y'all out because I know some of y'all, so I'll just introduce you for you. And then as more people, oh, perfect. Yes, we know chat is disabled, no worries. So we'll just be using the Q&A because I don't know how to enable the chat. Maybe I do. I am the host, but that's beyond me. So we'll be using Q&A. So it seems like most people know how to use the Q&A. Callie is an 8th year commercial litigation associate. David is a 7th year commercial litigation associate at Yetter Coleman. Haley is graduated from LSU 2023, 2nd year associate in family law at Owl Lawyers here in Houston. Amber is an 8th year attorney, but only 2nd year practicing litigation. She used to be a labor and employment lawyer. Emily, 4th year associate at Baker Botts, graduated in 2021. We have Kristen, who's in her 3rd year practicing immigration law. John is in his 4th year practicing energy transactional law at Norton Rose Fulbright. And Nettie is in her 7th year transactional attorney, and I know she's in-house at a large organization, and she's very excited for the webinar today. Shirless, she is an associate general counsel at Stellar Bank, 7th year. Baker is in her 3rd year practicing healthcare law at Jackson Walker. Thanks everybody so much. It really does help our panelists just kind of know like who is here, and don't be shy. If you've just logged on, I know we've got about 10 more people since I asked the first question, but if you've just logged on, I'm just asking everybody to, briefly introduce themselves. Hopefully you can see in Q&A. I don't know if everybody else can see others Q&As, hopefully. But just asking people to say, what year you are, what you practice, maybe your firm or organization would be great so that the panelists know. And otherwise, please feel free to use the Q&A just throughout the panel. We are very interested in hearing your questions, related to board service, how to get involved, just any burning questions you may have. We have an all-star lineup for you. So without further ado, I am so happy to introduce Brian Alfred. He is a rising 2L at Thurgood Marshall School of Law and is a law student liaison to the Houston Young Lawyers Association Board of Directors. Brian, thanks so much for being here, and I'm happy to pass it over to you to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you for the introduction and even more for the opportunity, Lena. So I get the pleasure of introducing our speakers for our panel today. Our first is going to be Diana Zarzuelo, who is a proud Houston native and daughter of immigrants. She is committed to keeping Houston a place of opportunity for everyone. Diana serves as Vice President of Community Impact at the Greater Houston Community Foundation. She holds a Master's of Public Policy from Harvard Kennedy School, was named one of Houston's 40 under 40, and is a senior fellow of the American Leadership Forum Houston chapter. Most notably, Diana is a proud mama of 3 and wife to Luis Negreros. Diana, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that introduction. Well, thank you all for being here. Really happy to be with you all. We want to start off with a short activity to get a feel of the virtual room. So those introductions were really helpful, but this will help keep you on your toes, make sure we're interacting. You'll see on the screen a way to join menti.com. You can use the QR code with your phone, or you can go to menti.com on your computer and enter the following code. So 3443-6132. I'll just give you a few seconds to set up, and you should see sort of like a little thumbs up once you get in, and that'll help us know how many folks are able to join and that we have a good enough group there. I see the thumbs up going, which is great. And I'll just give it a few more seconds to make sure people can get in. I'll start setting this up, and then Nadia will help sort of post the questions. So a couple of questions about board leadership. And I wanted to give full credit to Dev Patnick, who is CEO of Jump Associates. This is where I learned the sort of reflective activity from. That's a major strategy firm that's been advising leaders and board members at companies like Starbucks, Target, Nike, in addition to leading nonprofits and foundations. So here is the first question. In 1 or 2 words, what makes a fantastic board member? So what key attributes and roles come to mind for you when you get asked that question? You should have an option to put in up to 5 words, I think. And we'll see them. Great, that's a good one. Understands mission. You'd be surprised how many board members get on boards without understanding the mission. Leader, speaks up. Good. Influence, compassion, determination, engaged. Good. Has influence, diligent, enthusiastic, inclusive, considerate, uses outside network, plans for the organization, driven, inclusive, good listener, critical. Okay, here we go. Critical. I don't know if that's critical like critical or critical as in important, or critical as in offers critique. So that's interesting. Any others? I think we're waiting on a couple more. Okay, this is a great list. Engaged, leader, inclusive, sort of comes to the top. Okay, so next question here. What makes a fantastic grandparent? So consider the core traits and roles of grandparents. Maybe the ideal here, maybe not necessarily your reality, but great, fantastic grandparent. Wise, patience, boundaries, so important. Steps up to help. Deferential. Shares wisdom, good listener again. Patient, supportive, affectionate, caring. Guiding, forgiving. Warm. patient, supportive, wise, non-judgmental, empathetic. Those came in. Yeah, those are all really fantastic roles and characteristics of grandparents. So here's what I've learned in my board leadership journey. The best board members, they often show up more like a caring, supportive, and wise grandparent. They cheer on the CEO and staff. They offer guidance when asked. They coach you toward clarity when you need it. And they champion you, often relentlessly and with a lot of grace and forgiveness. They also hold you accountable with love, meaning they remind you what you're capable of and they help you stretch and grow. But they're there to sort of steer you back to a better path. They help pick you up when you're down. And they're a valuable thought partner, right? They're a coach. Ultimately, they're deferential, but they help you figure it out when you need it, how to fail forward if you need to. These board members support, they empower, and they have the ability to provide a higher level perspective. For me, a part of that higher level perspective is an understanding of the Houston landscape, our region's strengths, our challenges, and our emerging needs and opportunities. They extend the organization's strategic thinking and capacity to adapt to change proactively. So I'll start my presentation with just a teaser data perspective on Houston, and I hope to entice you to deepen your knowledge to be an even more effective guide and strategic coach as a future board member. So here's a quick outline of our time together. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Greater Houston Community Foundation and share 3 key insights on board service in Houston using data from Understanding Houston, which I'll share a little bit more about in a minute. And we'll wrap with just how to leverage the website as a resource. For those of you who are less familiar with the Greater Houston Community Foundation, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. We are actually one of the youngest community foundations across the country, among 800 across the country, but we are also among the largest, which is a testament to Houston's generosity. We support nearly 1,000 individuals, families, businesses, foundations, and nonprofits with their philanthropy. It's a robust philanthropic community that really fuels our vision to be where high impact philanthropy happens for Houston. Now, we've had the honor to partner with passionate donors and clients to drive meaningful change, granting over $2.7 billion over our 30-year history. This includes about $260 million in charitable donations last year alone. This is primarily through donor-advised funds, with about half of that supporting our vibrant nonprofit community here in Houston. So the foundation's purpose is to inspire and create meaningful and positive change with our donors and for our community. On the community impact team, which is the team that I lead, we do that through 3 strategic initiatives. The Understanding Houston is the foundation's first community impact initiative, and we developed it in strategic partnership with Rice University's Kinder Institute to basically bring accessible and credible data and insights to the philanthropic and nonprofit community all in one place. So if you haven't already, we hope that you all will visit understandinghouston.org. And that is where we aggregate almost 200 indicators across 9 quality of life topics and marry that with comparisons with the state and the nation, analysis drawing out key insights, and links to other valuable resources. Since its launch, more than 275,000 unique people have explored the site, with about 1 in 5 coming back and again and again. And the foundation has briefed more than 4,000 community leaders to help them better understand community needs and inform their philanthropy, their strategic planning, their case making, and action to address those needs. So quickly touching on these 2 additional initiatives, the foundation then followed Understanding Houston with action. So you've experienced it. We've had back-to-back disasters. Couple that with credible data about our region's climate risks led the foundation to launch the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance with catalytic gifts from Enbridge and Phillips 66. So this is a philanthropic partnership with United Way of Greater Houston, city and county leaders, and more than 100 nonprofit partners that helps to ensure we are working together year-round to stand ready to respond to disasters and accelerate disaster recovery, as well as pursue resources and solutions to build resilience between times of disasters. Finally, our third and newest pillar, our high impact grant making initiative, which is in its second cycle right now. The application is open for nonprofits and collaboratives. This is about creating an opportunity for our donors and partners to work more deeply with the foundation and invest together in the most promising solutions addressing really pressing community challenges. Right now, we're really focused on economic mobility and intergenerational poverty. So I'll now use the rest of my time to share 3 key insights related to board service in Houston. So number 1 insight, Houston needs you, and I'll share a little bit of data behind how much Houston needs you. Number 2, there are many, many opportunities to serve. And number 3, it's really win-win. The nonprofit benefits and you benefit. Number 1, Houston needs you. So Houston is one of the most economically segregated regions in the nation. Nearly 1 in 6 Harris County households live in poverty, a rate just higher than the state and the nation. Moreover, this percentage has barely shifted over the last decade. This means about 300,000 households in our region are living in poverty, which is really an excruciatingly low bar. So imagine a family of 4. Maybe 2 parents, 2 kids, 1 parent, 3 kids. If they earn more than $33,000, they're no longer considered poor, according to the federal government, regardless of whether they live in Nacogdoches or New York, where the cost of living varies dramatically. This is where a measure called ALICE comes into play. So ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. ALICE represents those who earn more above the poverty threshold, but they're still unable to afford the basic necessities of life, even while working full-time. So ALICE takes into needs beyond just food. They take into account basic things like housing, healthcare, childcare, and regional cost of living differences. So with this data, we see that 47% of households in Harris County are struggling financially. That's 47%. That's nearly half of households in Harris County are struggling financially to meet their basic needs. This equates to about 1 million households that do not have the income needed to afford their basic needs, much less curveballs like a natural disaster or a flat tire that might be thrown their way. And this is despite working full-time. So housing is one of the most fundamental necessities of life, and a household is considered cost burdened if 30% or more of their income is spent on housing alone. So about 1 in 4 homeowners are cost burdened. Half of renters are cost burdened. And the broader trends here are increasingly worrisome. We see declining homeownership rates, particularly among the Black population, increasing housing cost burden for both homeowners and renters. And this is largely due to stagnant incomes for low and middle income households while housing costs rise. If you are spending an inordinate amount of your already very limited income on housing, there is less for other basic needs, less for savings, less for investments in one's future, whether that's education or a business. So it may not surprise you that about 1/3 of children born into poverty will remain in poverty as an adult, according to research from Opportunity Insights, a research and policy lab based out of Harvard. So bottom line, poverty is sticky. And with 1 in 4 children growing up in poverty in Harris County, that is significant potential unfulfilled for children, for families, and the Houston region. About 10 years ago now, the Opportunity Insights team conducted a massive big data project, matching tax records for 20 million Americans to learn where children had the best chances of climbing the economic ladder. So the foundation defines economic mobility a bit broadly. So as an individual or a family, whether you have the ability to improve your financial circumstance within a lifetime and across generations. But here, Opportunity Insights is really focused on that across generations component. So in other words, is a better child off than their parents? Will they earn more as an adult compared to their parents? This map shows the average household income at age 35 for low-income children whose parents were earning very little, really at the bottom of the 25th percentile on income, which is about $27,000. The areas in red here represent places where you see less upward mobility, and the places in blue represent communities where you see more upward mobility. And a major finding here is that economic mobility clearly varies by place. Where you grow up matters. And you can see Houston here in beige, which I describe as meh, basically, stagnant mobility, kind of middle of the road here. And in Houston, low-income children essentially do not fare particularly better or worse than their parents when they grow up. We see this pattern at the hyper-local level by neighborhood as well. Growing up in different parts of Houston, low-income children can expect a $20,000 to $30,000 difference in average annual income as adults because of where they grew up. Now, again, this is low-income children in particular different neighborhoods, but all from the same bottom of the income ladder in terms of their own family circumstances. We see analogous disparities in education and health outcomes, with life expectancies varying more than 20 years for people from different neighborhoods, just a few miles apart. And that's because where you grow up shapes the quality of the air you breathe, the quality of your public schools, your opportunities for enrichment, parks that foster health and well-being and connection, your family's access to jobs that pay a living wage, or a local economy that supports a family business. And more importantly, it directly impacts your role models and who you know, your cross-class friendships, which research shows is one of the biggest predictors of upward mobility. So as much as I love Houston and deeply believe in our city's strengths, this data is a sobering reminder that for too many Houston children, the American dream is out of reach. And unless we confront this truth head on with courage and collaboration, we really risk allowing place, not potential, to determine a child's future. UnderstandingHouston.org has much more data by 9 issue areas, including civic engagement, education, health, housing, environment, and more. This really just scratches the surface, but the bottom line is that Houston needs you. Informed and caring professionals who are positioned to give generously of their time, talent, treasure, and ties to support the social sector through board service. Insight number 2, there are lots of opportunities to serve in Houston. More than 15,600 nonprofit organizations serve Houston's 3-county area. Compared to the US, we see a higher portion of nonprofits in the 3-county area that are religious, which is common for the South. That's followed by human service organizations that provide a broad range of social services and education-related nonprofits. Most notably, we have a much lower portion of nonprofits focused on the environment and animal welfare. And I think that gap is particularly striking, given that Harris County is really at the epicenter of environmental challenges, from extreme heat to flooding to air pollution and industrial risks. If you have a particular passion, either by issue or population, the chances are there is a nonprofit that could benefit from your service. Now, a couple of months ago, Greater Houston Community Foundation, alongside a few peer foundations in Houston, held conversations with about 150 nonprofits to learn about how they were managing this time of great uncertainty. And the conversations and survey data revealed that nonprofits are facing a complex and very challenging landscape, impacting their operations and ability to effectively serve their communities. So in particular, local nonprofits anticipate increased community needs, particularly from the low-income population, with far fewer resources given proposed cuts to the safety net and federal funding cuts that have already occurred. Many nonprofits are attempting to do stronger financial management, more proactive scenario planning, some with very limited capacity. There has been a lot of fear and anxiety, and both funders and nonprofit sort of executives are really fearful of turnover and staff morale challenges. And it's also been really difficult to determine what is real versus what is a perceived threat, what is legal and what is not. And this is a clear area where your legal expertise and ability to navigate complex language can make a real difference. Finally, last insight is that serving on a board is truly win-win. So the best board members, they give with no expectation of anything in return. They give generously of their time, you give of your talent, your treasure. Yes, be prepared to support financially, but that doesn't have to be a big amount financially. So don't let that stand in the way, but yes, give your treasure and ties, making introductions and increasing the visibility of the organization. But again, being on a board is win-win. So you'll strengthen your key competencies, you'll stretch into new skills, you'll expand your experience, perhaps increase your own visibility as a community leader and grow your own network. And as we all know, who you know matters, with real potential to advance your own economic mobility as well. So I'll end here with just a final piece on the importance of social capital. So Opportunity Insights found that one of the 4 critical factors contributing to upward mobility for low-income children here in this specific case, in specific neighborhoods, was higher social capital, specifically economic connectedness. So this is the extent to which you are both exposed to people of higher incomes than you, but then also the extent to which you have friendships with people of higher incomes than you. And through a separate big data project, the Opportunity Insights team analyzed 21 billion friendships across 72 million people using Facebook data to understand patterns of social connection. This new map on the right on economic connectedness is compared here with the earlier findings from tax records on upward mobility on the left. And you can see the darker areas on the right show communities where low-income individuals have fewer friendships with people from higher income backgrounds. In other words, low economic connectedness. And the pattern is clear here in the map, but also in the deeper data analysis. Where low-income people have more cross-income friendships, we tend to see better outcomes for upward mobility. As you see most of Harris County here in red, this is just one more data point that underscores the economic segregation we face here in Houston, and a powerful reminder of how relationships shape opportunity. Serving on a board will likely expand your own network, yes. And it's also a chance for you to pay it forward by being intentional about who's in your circle and how economic diversity in our friendships can help rewrite the story of mobility for someone else. So we've partnered with many nonprofits through Understanding Houston, from board presentations to large-scale briefings and events. We hosted an incredible series of events last year with Bridge Year, helping them launch their new strategic plan by providing vital data context. Hopefully, I've enticed you to check out understandinghouston.org to explore more yourself. Feel free to reach out to us to request a presentation, whether that's a broad overview or a custom briefing focused on specific issues. You can also use this QR code to sign up for our newsletter. Thank you all so much. I really appreciated the opportunity to join you all, and I look forward to hearing from the panelists.
Thank you so much, Deanna. That is just incredible background, both in terms of what it means to be on a board, how to be that wise grandparent to our organizations, and what the dire needs are facing our community in our own backyard. Without further ado, I'll pass it back to Brian, who will introduce our panelists. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you again, Lena and Diana. That was lovely. So thank you for the eye-opening information. So our next few panelists we have in no particular order coming up for you would be Vernique Hutchinson Francis, who is a managing attorney at McCreary, Veselka, Bragg, and Allen PC, specializing in property tax litigation and serving as general counsel to Texas appraisal districts. She has tried over 30 jury cases, deposed more than 100 witnesses, and is skilled in trial advocacy, contract negotiation, and regulatory compliance. Vernique demonstrates her commitment to community service and the arts by serving on the boards of Houston Arts Alliance Project and Project Row Houses, as well as Houston Lawyers Association. Next, we have Tina Nguyen, who is a litigation partner at Baker Botts LLP, specializing in high stakes commercial litigation. Tina is the president of the Federal Bar Association of the Southern District of Texas and serves on the executive committee for the Institute of Energy Law. Tina is recognized as up and coming for oil and gas litigation by Chambers USA and received the Best Under 40 award from the State Bar of Texas Asian Pacific Islander section. With all these career accolades, Tina's eyes still lights up when discussing her husband and their two children. Finally, we have Brittany Ringel Walton, who is the lead counsel for litigation at Lyondell Basell, a leader in the global chemical industry. Brittany focuses on construction litigation, commercial claims, and crisis management and incident responses. Before graduating from UCLA, she thrived on the varsity teams for basketball and volleyball. After UCLA, Brittany continued to thrive, earning her JD from Baylor University School of Law. Brittany is a mom of 3 kids and the 2015 through 2016 president of the Houston Young Lawyers Association. So all our panel members, thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to all you have to say.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you so much again to our panelists for your time. I know I do not have a shy group of people listening in right now. We already had a question roll in, so I want to go ahead and just pose that real quick, and then we'll jump in. And I want to hear from each of you regarding kind of your origin story of like how you first got involved with a board. But before we answer that question, Anedia asks, any advice on what steps to take to ensure that my service on a board doesn't create a de facto attorney-client relationship and or expose me to liability as the organization's legal advisor? I think this is just such a good question. And Deanna, if you have any insight too, it was actually right after your session. So I don't know if you have any insight. I know this has certainly come up with, for me, I serve on another board and I've definitely gotten asked legal advice and it always makes me a little nervous, frankly. So great question, Anedia, and everybody else, please don't be shy. I think I enabled the chat, and if not, Q&A is working. But without further ado, anybody want to take on that question?
It hasn't happened to me. So the boards that I serve on, they're like, we have attorneys. So that it hasn't really happened to me, but I actually want to hear the answer if somebody has that one.
Hi everyone. My name is Tina Nguyen. I serve, also on the board for Baker Ripley. And given that, this has come up for me before where I'm both a litigation attorney as well as both a board member. And so one of the things that I try to very purposefully do is that when I'm serving as a board member, it is as a board member giving, business advice ultimately for the organization to thrive. I, as a result, intentionally do not take on litigation matters for my board, where I serve on a board, just in case if there's any concern about privilege and whether we're giving legal advice versus business advice. And I try to keep that separate as a way to protect the organization as opposed to, of course, we'd love to help in any way. That said, I work at a law firm where there's so many people who do, who have great legal advice to give. And so that's another easy way to split it off of, connecting the organization with somebody that could provide them legal advice without raising the potential concern of, are you wearing your board hat or are you wearing your attorney hat in this situation? I hope that helps.
Awesome. Well, we can always return to that if somebody thinks of something. Great question. And again, don't be shy, everybody listening in. And so our first question that I'd love to hear from all of the panelists on, I'll start with Vernique and then maybe we can go to Tina and then Brittany, is at what stage of your career did you first start getting involved with a board? It doesn't have to be your current board that you're on now. Maybe it was a totally different board, but what was kind of your origin story, if you will, with board service as a lawyer?
Okay. Thank you, Lena, for having us. I also think the presentation that Diana presented beforehand was really great and insightful. With regard to my origin story, this would probably be because I talk too much. And so I became friends with the CEO of Houston Arts Alliance and realized the needs that were there, and then was voluntold to be on one of the committees, which was the Gala Committee, and then it just kind of flowed from there. It is also because, and when I say voluntold, we were at a function and I was like, I love gala planning. I used to do another gala and I like doing this, and it just comes to me naturally. And that is essentially how that happened. And after being on that committee without actually being on the board, I was eventually nominated to be on the board based off of my service on the gala committee. So that's my origin story for Houston Arts Alliance. But, I have the wherewithal to keep on doing free work. So here I am.
Thanks so much. Tina?
I can't quite pinpoint the exact time frame in my career, but I want to say I was around a mid-level associate when I started getting more and more involved with board service. Part of it was because I graduated during the time where the recession was going on. And so I think everyone's, nose was in books and nose was in doing legal work. And I remember I got some very good advice during my career of, you need to take your nose out of the books and out of the litigation filing that you're working on and look outside and look around, because one, we have a moral obligation in order to help out the people around us, but two, you also have a skill set to do that. And so I think I got the push and encouragement to do that somewhere around my mid-level year. That said, I'm on this panel with folks who I think got that push probably a lot earlier, and got the encouragement probably earlier to do that. And I think it's, it was a very wise counsel that I received that encouraged me to do that around, my mid associate year. So maybe third or maybe fourth or fifth year, I want to say.
Thanks so much, Tina. Brittany?
Yeah, so I moved to Houston after law school without knowing anyone, and another senior associate at the firm was the president of Houston Young Lawyers Association, and the meetings were in our office. And so helping him and being encouraged to get to know people and just go to events, get involved, and similar to Vernique, finding something that you're passionate about and then doing good work with people and being known as reliable, it turned into being a committee chair, I think going to Leadership Academy and building those connections from people that were all different practice areas, turned into eventually being on the board and then deciding to run for leadership eventually.
Thanks so much. Deanna, any insight to add, especially from your perspective? I know non-lawyer, but you're very active in a large board and with other boards, of like how you've seen, especially younger attorneys, like many of us on the call, how they went about getting their foot in the door, or younger professionals. Doesn't have to be an attorney. Like honestly,
Yeah.
totally fine.
I do think the volunteering is a common route to take, and just getting engaged in the mission. I mean, number one is showing genuine interest in the mission and then adding value, whether it's offering capacity or thought partnership on a committee. The other is, I would say, United Way. They have Project Blueprint, which they're actually revamping to be broader and more inclusive. It was designed originally for individuals and people of color, but it will be broader in the future. And so that's another opportunity where they do board training, and then they do sort of nonprofit matchmaking to help first-time board members become board members.
Thank you so much, Deanna. We have another question from Lisa Parker, who's an AUSA and on our board as well, HYLA. With so many great organizations out there, what questions should we ask ourselves in order to find the right board and organization to join? Not let anybody, I know that wasn't a planned question, so feel free to take a beat if you need it. Deanna, of course, if you have anything to add.
I think it's a great question, because I think that originally my service, and after I became a professional, was with Houston Lawyers Association. In that capacity, I was just on the gala committee, so just serving in that capacity. And so while I had passion about it, it was a lot of work. And so eventually, when I did become start service again after I had my daughter, took some time off, but it was about the arts, because I have a passion for the arts. I have a passion for the community. I have a passion for what goes on within that area and how Houston shows up for the arts community. And so with asking questions, I think that one, there was a mention about what the financial commitment would be when the presentation was going on. So that could be something that's important for you to ask when you're thinking about board service. You also want to know how long the commitment will be, because I got on a board thinking I was a year, and here I am 2 years in, and it's really 3 years. And that's fine, because I would have been on it anyway. But that's also a good question to ask, because I think that as a young professional, a lot of positions that you may have held before were for a year because you were elected to serve in that position or something to that effect. And then any other commitment that the board or the organization would want from you. Those are the questions that you want to, in my opinion, ask, so you know what you're getting into and how much of your time and commitment it was going to take out of your regular life.
I agree with all of that, and I could not say it better. I really, when I was thinking about board service, I had essentially two things I had in my mind, which is I had to look at my capacity and what I could handle. And so that meant to me that I wanted to focus on two organizations where I really wanted to go very, very invested in, that I was going to be a committed member, and like Vernique, raise my hand for things. And then the other thing was, what did I want to contribute? And I just landed on my two primary organizations at that time would be Institute for Energy Law, because it was helpful to me as an energy litigation lawyer to meet people, to get to know people. And it was helpful to my career to also get the CLE from IEL and, learn, substantively from IEL. The other thing too that was important to me is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the fact that there weren't a lot of folks that might have looked like me or minorities in IEL, and I thought that was an important thing for us to be represented in the organization. So that's how I chose IEL initially. And then the other organization, Baker Ripley, I chose because it's completely different. It's really giving back to the community and seeing how the greater Houston area has its challenges and how we can contribute to meeting the needs of the greater Houston area, which was very exciting to me to be able to do, and doesn't use my, litigation or doesn't use that skill set, but was helpful and meaningful to me personally. So those are some of the things I thought about.
And so we'll switch gears just a little bit. How has board service benefited your career or helped you develop business? And I know we have a variety. We've got Brittany, you're in-house, so I think that potentially could be a very different answer for you than Tina, who's obviously Baker Watson doing predominantly outside counsel work, litigation, and then Vernique as well. I know you do a lot of regulatory for government entities. So I really love that our panelists, y'all are bringing such different perspectives when it comes to like business development / like career advancement, because y'all's careers are so diverse. So would love to hear from each of you. I don't want to put any of you on the spot to talk first, but I would love to hear from each of you of like, how has it helped your career?
I'll start us off. So I've made real life friends, that's what I call them, through serving on committees and through board service. And it's so nice to have an outlet when you're a young lawyer, or even when you're further along in your career, to have something that you're passionate about and learn from others that are further along from you or than you. And then it can be eye-opening on other paths that are out there. I'm a first generation lawyer, and just the people that I've met and seen how people have blazed their own trail, it's been so meaningful to my career and development, serving and being on different boards and organizations.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Vernique or Tina, anything to add?
It's interesting when I knew this question was coming up. I was like, I don't know. I don't work with, we don't, because my field is very, it's very niche. So everybody knows everybody. We're in the same field and everything like that. However, what I've realized is you don't know who knows who, right? And so, and when I started my board service, especially for the Houston Arts Alliance, I was actually in a point in my career where I didn't even want to be a lawyer anymore. So, and then I so happened to meet somebody whose husband was a partner in a firm, and they were looking for somebody to fill a litigation gap. And they were like, do you want to come and run our real estate section? I was like, no, I hate being a lawyer. So I've now since changed my mind. However, at that point, I couldn't have imagined that and having happened when I was a young attorney, or it just is not something I could have ever imagined, because the whole time, because I too, Tina, graduated during the time of the recession. I graduated in 2009. So we knew how hard it was to get it, to be in a position to have a job that you truly enjoyed. And so as far as like creating business though, I think that within that, again, you don't know who knows who. And it's also been really interesting in how the opportunities have come about, whether it be to assist in the other boards you're on, assist in other organizations you're on, connect people who you may be friends with, connect other lawyers with something that, with somebody whom you've met. So while I pride myself on being a connector, I think that everybody has that ability. And I think that that's a possibility within that realm. And I too agree with Brittany that I too have real life friends that I've met from service. And I think that that's really big and really important, especially with Houston. And we have 42,000 people that just moved here last year, that we have all these new people, we have all these new young lawyers. And I think it's really important to continue to build our community in that way and be close, and working on board service is something that can do that. So.
Thank you so much.
Agree.
Sorry, go ahead, Tina.
Sorry, Lena. I was going to say I agree. It's funny, when I started joining organizations, what I didn't realize would be such a wonderful benefit from it would be that when you're in an organization, you talk about everything except the cases that you're handling, right? You get to know a person by that person, of like, oh, hey, you love to play mahjong. I do too. And you meet them in a different context, right? Which is really valuable. And I find that making those friendships is a very nice, stressful, like non-stressful way to make connections. And I've seen those relationships as a result, benefit me individually. Where, for example, there was an instance where we were pitching to a client to hire us, and I'd gotten to know somebody at the company through, an organization, and we knew each other. We knew everything about each other except really our legal work through it. But it was nice that there was a friendly face on the other side, and that this person at least knew me as somebody that, was thoughtful and organized, ideally, because we worked together in a committee. And as a result, there was additional, substance behind, our RFP that we were submitting. The other thing that's come up too is I've had litigation opposite people I've met in organizations. And that is really quite wonderful, actually, because when you meet them in a different context and then you have litigation that's opposite them, when you tell them, I have no responsive documents here, that there's credibility behind it, because they met you as an individual before they met you as a litigation attorney for this company right here. And so we would have, I've had a case, for example, that one that comes to mind in particular in arbitration, where we had no discovery disputes because there was credibility on both sides. And I wasn't, Baker Botts wasn't hired on that case because of this relationship or because we knew the other side. it was just an end result that was really quite wonderful, that minimized, unnecessary disputes. That was a real nice benefit on that issue. And it's really nice to not have discovery disputes if you can avoid it. So that was really quite wonderful.
I want to add on here too, that it gives you opportunities to develop outside of your firm or your company and develop new skills, and also demonstrate your value when maybe your firm or company aren't seeing that from you or expecting that from you yet. So like through HYLA, you can speak on a substantive CLE and have so many attendees hear from you and get your name out there, get the firm's name out there. Or you help out with Adopt a Angel and you get to say, I helped deliver gifts to 4,000 kids in the Houston area. And so I think that gives some perspective when things can feel hard when you're a younger or mid-career associate, to be passionate about something, be able to make a positive contribution to an organization, and then also the development aspect too.
And I wanted to add one more thing. There's also ability for cross-pollination, right? So there was an opportunity. I realized I met a lot of women I was on Fort Bend Junior Service League. It was a committee, but we did a lot of work and we knew a lot of people because of this particular committee. Fast forward to another section in my firm needed help with something in the city. And it was like, who knows who? Nobody knew anybody except for me. And so even though it wasn't the work I did, it was able to have that cross-pollination with maybe attorneys or decision makers whom I wouldn't probably have had a conversation with as well. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Brittany said as far as speaking as well, because as I mentioned, it was a time where I didn't know if I wanted to be an attorney, but because of relationships I had met before, and I was kind of just out here, I was able to speak on a lot of panels and different boards on information that I already knew because of the relationships I'd already created from other service initiatives.
Thank y'all so much. We do have another question from the audience from John. He's at Northwest Fulbright, and he also serves on the Houston Young Lawyers Association board. John, you're on way too many other boards for me to remember, so forgive me. John is amazing and super active in the community. I think he's on IEL, just because I know you mentioned that one, Tina. And he's asking, to what extent are board members in the nonprofit space held as fiduciaries in comparison to for-profit spaces? What are 2 or 3 key areas that nonprofit board members should be focused of or aware of with regard to potential fiduciary responsibilities? Kind of a tough one, to me at least, maybe not for y'all. And Deanna, if you have anything, I'm glad to hear anything from you as well.
First, hi, John. Nice to see your name. It's a good question. I feel like I remember when I joined a nonprofit board inquiring about insurance levels and protections there for the board, but it's a little bit in the recesses of my brain right there. But Deanna might have better information about how they manage their board.
Yeah. Board members in the nonprofit space are absolutely held to fiduciary standards, sort of like that is one of their core functions, and even more so maybe in the nonprofit sector because they're stewards of charitable assets and the public trust. So they're not answering to shareholders, but they're accountable to donors and the public and regulatory kind of IRS infrastructure that regulates nonprofits. So you think about duty of care, like oversight, are resources being managed thoughtfully and used in ways that are legal and ethical and all of those things, advancing the mission. You think of duty of loyalty to avoid conflicts. You think of duty of obedience, like are we following all of the right compliance rules and regulations? What I also like to talk about, though, is that you couple that financial oversight and management like role with a focus on mission and impact, because I have heard and seen boards that perpetuate organizations that actually might be better off transferring assets and dissolving, even though I know that's challenging. Transferring assets, that's not an uncomplicated thing to do, but it's doable because sometimes you get wrapped in like how do we hold on to the organization, and so that's just my personal thought on that it should really be about where should the assets live, or where should the continued mission and impact of this organization live. And sure, sometimes it is with the organization, but sometimes it's no longer sort of the best place for that.
Thank you so much, Deanna. That was, I think, spot on. But if anybody has anything else to add, please feel free. I want to make sure we get to this next question because Emily's asking a very similar question. So this is Emily Rollis at Baker Botts and our president-elect of HYLA. And she also serves on various committees of the Houston Bar Association. She's amazing. She's asking, how much of your time do your various boards require? I'm sure it varies. Is there some kind of average? But I think part and parcel of that question is the last questions that we had on our list that we discussed in preparing for this, because I know it's definitely burning in my mind and in others, is work-life balance. How do you balance your board nonprofit work with your obviously incredible careers and personal lives? I know many of y'all are mothers. And how do you have any cautionary tales or instances where you face burnout? How did you bounce back? How did you set boundaries? So there's a lot there. Take any part of it that you like, but kind of this, time question.
I feel like I was talking a lot, but I'll take it. I think I can't answer the actual number of hours necessarily, because I think that as the year goes on, the work ebbs and flows. And depending upon where you are and what committee you may be working on in your organization, that will determine how much time you spend. I do also believe that with board service, you can choose how much time you intend to spend, but that also is how much of a commitment that you are how much you're participating in it and what all gets done. But I also think that there's an opportunity for you to communicate how much time you can spend on that. So there's taking that into consideration. I answered first because I actually told Lena, I said, I have a cautionary tale about burnout. So as I mentioned, I was on a committee with the Fort Bend Junior Service League where we essentially decided where all the money went to which organizations, how much they got after our huge fundraiser. And the time frame in which we did all of this work was in the fall. I did it for 3 years and was fine. And then I began at my new firm, and that is also our busy season. I almost died last year. So I had to essentially say, one, I won't be continuing on this committee next year, but two, even with that said, because it was still the year before that, I had to make a decision and say, okay, well, I can't sign up to do anything else, because if you've attended a lot of galas in Houston, that's gala season as well. So going to a gala every weekend, in addition to the service that I'm having to provide for my job and having to provide for what I said I made a commitment to, was very difficult. So what I did was I made a calendar invitation for the next year and said, don't sign up for anything. Don't say yes to anything. So that was essentially my boundary I set for myself, because I'm so used to saying, yes, I'll show up. But everybody's going to you have to think about just kind of like what you're getting into, because it didn't occur to me when I was saying yes at the time that this is what was going to happen. I just knew I had a free slot on my calendar. So that was my cautionary tale about burnout.
It's a good tip, because I do think we have to think so hard about that. One of the things I've done is a lot of the board organizations I'm a part of are kind of like a ladder, right? Like you start off as secretary, and then you become vice chair, and then become president-elect, and then become president. I find that really helpful, because then you can start figuring out that in 3 years' time, you're going to have to plan this event. In 4 years' time, you're going to be leading it. It's going to be a big commitment. And you can project, in other words, what your life is going to be like when you say yes to the initial yes right there. And so that's been helpful to me to be able to figure out, okay, in 2026, I'm going to be committed primarily to this organization. It's going to take up a lot of my time. And as a result, I'm going to step back slightly in this other organization. But I'll be back because y'all are very meaningful, important to me, and I'm rooting for your success. And communicating that ultimately, as Vernique said, of letting people know what your capacity is. Does people want to know that? People want to be able to be there for you. So I would say that's where, that's the stage that I'm in right now, kind of rewinding about maybe 8 years ago. I think 8 years ago, I would say the first step is probably to say yes to a lot of things and see which organization is a good fit for you. And then ultimately identify the organization you're going to be, like Brittany did, where she, climbed the ladder at HYLA, where Vernique, showed that she was committed through being on the gala committee, figuring that out, so that then you can identify where to invest your resources. I found the thing that was the biggest struggle for me was going to a lot of different events for a lot of different organizations and not feeling like I met anyone, or, kind of went and not sure what kind of value the organization has by me being there. And so that's some of the things that I think about when I'm thinking about where to invest my time. And Emily's question about how much time do my various boards require? This year FBA is a lot. Last year FBA was a lot because I planned the annual dinner, and then IEL is led. So I want to say, I'm going to throw out a number that's going to scare people, but I think it's like 100, 200 hours on board service. But it ebbs and flows, not all the time.
I'll answer briefly that there's just different seasons. Like it can be all consuming. I got married a month after my HYLA presidency year, and then got pregnant with twins a month later. And so I ended up stepping back from all my involvement. And like the other thing, I think, Emily, you asked this question, like when you're on a board, it can have other obligations, just instead of just that board seat, it can open up into other things. And so taking that into account, but then to touch on the burnout aspect of it, paying attention to what you want and the direction of your career, like what Vernique was talking about, and not just others' expectations of you. And the other thing I've learned too is like what got you here is not necessarily what's going to get you to the next spot. And so not always just, I used to think powering through was this like amazing thing. And I've had to learn that prioritizing rest and recharging is actually important.
Thank you so much. I want to honor everyone's time. We're just past 1 o'clock. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to all of our amazing panelists. Diana, thank you as well for your presentation. Just great table setting. We have very new members to the board. We have some folks who have served on HYLA for a long time, and some, I know, law students who have never been on a board before. So that really helps set the stage. But Vernique, Brittany, and Tina, thank you so much. Just incredibly wise words and advice. I know everybody has busy days to get back to. So, and also Brian, I don't know if you want to put your video back on, but Brian, thank you so much for being here with us. We so appreciate you. And I know y'all are busy with your summer. I am popping in the chat the CLE number. Hopefully if anybody had to log off before, I know a couple people had to, they can always email Lucy, but the CLE number is in the chat now. Thank you, Anedia. Thank you, John, everybody. I don't know if you guys can see what I could see in the chat, but people are being very nice, so y'all should know that.
Thank you.
I'll stay on just for a second in case anybody pops up, but want to let y'all get back to your busy days. I did take screenshots, so I hope that's okay. I got ones where you weren't making like faces or in the middle of something. But you know what? If y'all all don't mind humoring me, I would like to take one more as we just kind of wrap up, so that where we are smiling. So I'm going to count us down in 3, 2, 1. Perfect. There we go. I got it. Awesome. Okay, all of our eyes are open and we're mid-sentence. So that's perfect. Awesome. So everybody has the CLE chat, and appreciate you all, board members. I'll see y'all soon this Saturday at our board retreat. We definitely have a wonderful table set for us to discuss a lot. Thank you guys, and hopefully we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for having me, Lena.
Of course. I'll be tagging y'all on LinkedIn and some pictures.
Bye, y'all.
See you soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.